Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 3 of today's live shows. We've obviously had the best one saved till now. We're going to chat through offensive line with a couple of our friends of the show. Obviously, this is I'm Mike from the Britballing podcast. This is the only kind of one I know anything about, so that's good. This is the BAFCA convention, our virtual one for this year. We're helping BAFCA run that, so Wayne can actually get some sleep, and Pete after last night. So we're going to go through, we're going to chat offensive line, bit of a roundtable with a couple of guests. Adam's going to join us in a little while. So firstly, JB, pleasure for you to join us. How you doing, mate?
Good, Mike. Good.
Yeah, good to have you on. How's everything going on your end? Where are you based at the moment?
Good. I'm at the last. This will be my third season at the Kingswood Oxford School. So it's a private, independent high school in West Hartford, Connecticut. So real high academic place. But the football has been good. There's some, the team's small. We have a small roster, and I think I was saying yesterday when we were talking on the show yesterday. That I'm probably as close to Britball right now as I've ever been, just in terms of numbers, maybe inexperienced players, maybe people coming to the sport for the first time. So I've learned a lot. I think I probably had to learn more, and it's gave me a really good appreciation of, I always thought that because I'd spent time over there and I know a lot of the coaches over there that I really understood it. Now I really understand it. So
now you get it. Now you're feeling it.
Now I feel it. Yeah, now I feel it.
How to plan a session with 2 offensive linemen and 1 defensive lineman when you've got the whole thing planned for full scrimmage. I like it. Welcome.
Exactly.
Speaking of Leiden, how we doing? How you doing, my man? You good?
Yeah, all good. I mean, it wouldn't be a BAFCA convention without JB doing a talk. So this is normally my best bit of the weekend. So, yeah, I'm all good.
Yeah, good. And just a quick. Obviously, I knew you and we spoke a couple of times, but for anyone watching who doesn't know, where you at the moment?
Yeah. So I'm the OC at Exeter Demons in Uniball and the head coach of Somerset Wyverns in Senior Ball.
Lovely, and pleasure to have you on, lineman through and through, as we like to see it. And we're also joined by Carl. How are we doing, mate? You okay?
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good. Yeah, very good, mate. Good. So just a quick elevator pitch as to who Carl is. But obviously I can probably tell that from the hat, but just from anyone else who doesn't know that.
Yeah, I thought I'd rock the hat. I'm currently I've been given the title of run game coordinator at the Lions uni team. I'm still not sure what that actually means. I better probably figure that out. So only a couple of months left till the season starts. But I'm also the head coach of the Lions women's program as of September, just gone. So it's a weird start to taking over a team, obviously joining during lockdown and not being able to actually meet with your players for 6 months. But finally back on the field now and getting ready for the season.
Getting ready for the season. As I think we're some of us are a good mix between senior ball and all different divisions here. So first comment in. Hi, thanks for putting this on. Luke, no worries. That's absolutely fine. So we're going to talk about the offensive line. If you guys have got any questions, comments, or anything, feel free to drop them in the chat, just as Luke has there, and we'll get through to them. So I think the first thing we'll start off is offensive line. I'd like to know your thoughts on the characteristics and type of player you like to have as an offensive lineman. What are some of those key things you look for? Let's say, for example, we've all been in a situation where we're choosing our rookie from our lineup. What is it you're looking for, and what are the first couple of skills you're looking to develop? JB, probably first to you on that one.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you gotta find somebody that's gonna actually agree to do it. I think I remember a story about someone was telling me from a rookie session over in the UK where there's 47 receivers and there's 0 offensive linemen, and then you got to just kind of direct them over. And I'm kind of in the same boat, they just don't know about offensive line play, so they're not sure they want to do it, or there just isn't anybody that's ever played it. So I guess the first thing is like that desire to come over and kind of go along with what the coach is suggesting, because I think everybody that's ever played offensive line, you were conscripted. You didn't go over there because you wanted to. You were asked to go over there and do it, either because of I mean, obviously looking at the shapes of the guys just in the room, none of us were built like wide receivers, so they sent you over there. So I think that's the biggest thing, is having somebody that's like, all right, coach, I'll give it a go. And I think that's where it all starts with them. And then just not being afraid to like put their face on somebody. I think if you have that ability to say, yeah, coach me, coach, and then to be able to just throw it in there, I think you can get away with a lot of maybe guys not being as athletic or maybe even being as big. It's kind of like the ability to say, I'm willing to be coached, and the ability to say, I'll just get after somebody. And I think if you have those two things, that's where it all starts.
Perfect. And Carl, what about for you? Obviously, you've got rookies coming up soon, university ball. What are you going to be looking for?
I mean, yeah, it's the same as JB. That was going to be my answer. That people willing to do it and that are actually going to turn up is the first thing. But yeah, I mean, I think we're lucky at the uni in that we always have good numbers through the door, and it's usually quite easy to sort of pick out someone who is a bigger size, even though they might think they want to play receiver. That there is 30 receivers in front of them, and you can have an honest chat of, look, mate, you're not going to play receiver. But then obviously the battle is always trying to win them to the O-line rather than the D-line. So
simple question: have you got a brain? Yes, right. Play O-line.
Yeah. What's 2 + 2? Okay. So yeah, I think we're fairly lucky, and we've been fairly lucky at the women's team as well, in that there are girls who come in who are big girls and have wanted to. They've been quite easy to convince that O-line is going to be the position for you. So I think I'm coming from a position where, from both sides, we've been lucky enough to have the numbers where we can have honest chats with people and say, look, if you're really thinking about playing this sport, this is the position that you're going to need to play. And due to the number of players that they can see at that other position, that they agree more willingly, I suppose, than going, no, I'm definitely a receiver. You're not, mate.
Listen, you're not. No, and imagine, and Lydon, anything out of what was said there, do you feel, when you're looking for the start, that first point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want lumps. They can go play D-line and take up some space. Like, I want guys that can move, ideally. I mean, luckily enough, the Exeter side of things, we don't get anyone what I would call actual lineman shape. We've just got it's like a team of linebackers, and you've just got to make do with what you've got. So that helps from that side of things. But no, I mean, I think it's just people that listen, really. I think weirdly, somebody pointed out to me a couple of months ago that a lot of the guys that I seem to get on my offensive line are somewhere on the spectrum as well, because they like that process driven sort of technique and repetition and everything like that, and they seem to sort of naturally gravitate toward. I never really picked up on it before until somebody pointed it out, but weirdly, yes, I seem to naturally pick people that like that sort of process driven and repetition. So
yeah, no, perfect. I think we're all in agreement of in terms of what we look for. But once we've got our specific type of person, whether it be someone a bit more nippy and agile as it seems that Lydon looks for, or just that stereotypical size, and how do you guys then go about that next stage of an offensive lineman? So taking the raw physical talents or what you have. What for coaches out there who are looking at, for example, rookies, what can they be doing and implementing in order to take them to a decent enough level where you feel confident putting them in a game? JB will go.
I think it's coaching the feet. I think if you really look at it, like when you get those big guys that play for you. Oftentimes they've been the biggest guy in the room their whole lives. Everything that they've done is kind of like they're a hammer. They're just going to smash things. And, that's great. But when they get all upper body related to do those kind of things, they forget about their feet. And so I think from the beginning, when you're training an offensive lineman, you start from the bottom up. You work their feet. You work those techniques, because if they can get their feet where they're supposed to be, I've always said that I don't think a lot of games have just been won by a bench press. I think if you can get in the way, get run over slowly, I think you got a chance to make a block. Like not every block has to be a 10-yard down the field pancake. If you can do that, then just go do that. Like I there's no coaching to that really to me. But it's like in pass protection and in a lot of blocks, it's like if you can get your feet in the right position, that generally gets your hips in the right position, and then whether you're a 500-pound bench presser or a 100-pound bench presser, you do what you got to do at that point with your upper body. So I always start, with any kid, getting them in the correct stance and making sure that they can move their feet correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I have to completely double down on that because I'm a big firm believer that scheme can definitely overpower actual power in that regard from a lineman's perspective. Getting your body physically on half a man's body where possible and putting it in the right position. And like you said, getting run over slowly, but just using the angles and knowing where the running back's going can do half a job for you. You can almost, we joke about sometimes at the Titans, a block with no arms because you can just get your whole body into that right position. You got your arms behind your back and then just, okay, just run through me if you can, unfortunately. Unlike Lydon, unless you like a lump. If you are a lump, they say it's not always the easiest to do so. And Carl, what about for yourself? What about those next steps? What are you looking for? Are you saying feet first, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just copy JB, but JB just used a coaching point of just getting away, and yeah, I've definitely been guilty of using that phrase a lot when I first have new players. In that, we may have 30 minutes for your first sort of 30 minutes of Indies each week, each session, should I say? Sorry, and there's a lot to learn. If someone who's just turned up, has been convinced to play O-line, didn't turn up wanting to play O-line, it's a very unnatural, it's an unnatural sport to play to begin with. Never mind, an offensive line position. There's nothing else that transfers from any other sport. So you're teaching them, some really interesting techniques. So yes, I just take first 25 minutes just teaching stance, footwork, run blocking, and then we'll do like 2 or 3 minutes of mirror drills and be like, hey, all you need to do is get in the way on pass pro. That's all you need to do, just literally get in the way, move your feet. And then, we'll be able to get them playing quickly that way. And, we can teach the more detailed technical stuff later on. But for now, it's all feet and stance.
Yeah, cool. And Lydon, for you?
Yeah, stance is the biggest thing for me because I think that's the start of every single play. So if that's wrong, everything else is wrong after it. Getting the stance down and just making them sort of understand it, because I think a lot of the way, if you teach the stance in sort of the right way, they understand how that makes them better. It's just little things like the amount of people you see their spine is like that, and you're like, well, that's going to hurt you. So just give them those visual keys kind of thing to understand why this is better and why it's going to help them out going forward. I always say to them, if it's 10%, if your stance is 10% rubbish, then the rest of it's 10% rubbish. I normally use more expletive words than that. But.
Yeah, well, stay safe. It's before the watershed, I'm told. I'm on my best behaviour as well, Lydon. Don't worry about that. I've got a quick question for you all there. 2 or 3 point stance from an offensive lineman. I don't want. Go. For me, it's 2 point stance. It's the easy answer, just for the pass pro side of things. But I'd be interested to know your thoughts.
I've taught both, played in both, horses for courses. I got to a point where I probably got too complicated one year when I was teaching at Sandwell, and we would change stance based on down and distance, and it definitely got, we basically scrapped it quite quickly, even though logically it worked. The guys actually getting into stance, not only thinking what the players are going, is this third down or second down? Oh shit! Yeah. There's a snap. We're just talking about watershed. We scrapped that and basically went to whatever they felt most comfortable with. I definitely preferred that sort of down and distance you use it basically situationally, but we got to a point, and I'm happy with people just using what's most comfortable for them. What are they most effective with, rather than prescribing you have to be in a 3 point stance, because I've seen some guys in Brit Ball that they can barely get into a 2 point stance, never mind a 3. So why are you forcing them into a 3 point?
I am on the call. Oh, go on. And JB, what about for yourself? 2 or 3, or does it?
I guess tackle? When I start with it, I kind of say I want the guards in a 2, and then the tackles can be up in a 3. But I'm kind of like Carl. If there's a certain player that just performs effectively out of one more than the other, then I let him kind of do it. So we had I had an offensive line years ago where my left tackle liked to play in a 2 and my right tackle would like to play in a 3. Well, fine, do that. I had a couple years ago at Bowdoin, we took our best player was our center, and we needed him to play guard. I slid him over to guard. He never got in a 3-point stance ever at guard. He just stayed in a 2, and he was super effective in it. Now, if a guy can't play in the 2, but he wants to be in the 2 because it's sexy, then he's got to play in a 3. Like it's just allowing them to figure out what's going to be most effective for them, and not getting too over coachy with it. Like telling them like you have to be in a 2 and then you have to be in a 3. The only thing I do teach to everybody is I do teach them how to get in a 4-point stance for when we get into like really short yardage stuff.
Just attack the hit.
They'll all get taught to get down in that 4-point stance to get off the ball, but and that's kind of a non-negotiable one when we get into those situations. Is I want them to get down there and root hog and do that. But other than that, do what you want as long as it's effective. I always say it doesn't have to be pretty; it just has to be effective. So,
and Lyden?
So I mean, if you said like gun to the head, pick one, I would always go 3-point. But I think it's more tools in the toolbox depending on the person. So I've generally found taller athletes struggling to run block in a 2, just from a sort of leverage point of view. So yeah, I think if you can do it from a 2, then I have no issue with it. But very rarely, I've less frequently seen someone that can run block well from a 2-point stance.
Come up north, Lyden.
I know. Yeah. Sheltered down here.
No, I'm going to say my only point in it is from where I would prefer a 2 and coach a 2 is for visuals in terms of watching. Obviously, we would have a call of a 1 linebacker blitz. I've always found that a little bit more difficult to do that from a 3, to be able to see the whole field as it almost was. I don't know you can have your centre sat there calling all that, but sometimes it's always easier to see that for yourself if you're going to slide left on an outside blitz or whatever that may be. And then I suppose the second part of that for me is completely gone out of my mind, so it doesn't really matter. No, but yeah, definitely in terms of the visuals wise. And then if you've ever run blocked on a 3 technique from a 3-point stance and got swam moved, you're probably not going to do that often as much anymore, because I don't know about anyone else, but coming out the 3-point stance, I always found myself a lot top heavier, so I was more susceptible to that quick swim move. So I think speed kills out the 3-point stance for me. We've got a couple of questions coming, so I'm just going to read these. Any thoughts on how much to include a tight end with the O-line each week?
We do 50-50. So so we still play with like a traditional tight end at Exeter, and so yeah, we do almost sort of split positional time. So half the time they'll for instance they'll do all the footwork stuff with the run blocking stuff with the O-line, and then when we go into pass pro, they'll go off and catch balls and do whatever they do. And
yeah, no, that's fine. And JP, any difference on you?
Yeah, it's about the same. I think it depends on the kid, the players. I've had years where the tight end was really more of a glorified wide receiver, and I wouldn't dare stick him, next to the tackle to do any blocking. I'd rather bring in an extra offensive lineman if I can do that. We'll take him through this year. This year, I do have. That's probably a really good position for us. I've got 3 tight ends that I would put down next to a tackle. So they're going to spend a little bit more time with us. But at the end of the day, I always say, like, get them over there for the time that you need them and try to keep that to the maximum minimum time with those guys, because none of those guys, once they've been thrown a football, give a rat's ass about blocking. So they want to go catch passes. You're only going to get them for so much time. So just be really efficient with that time. Probably like Lyde's saying, get them over there for their footwork stuff. Get them over there for the stuff that they really have to work on, and be very specific with it in the time that you're with them. And when you have them, that's the stuff you do with your O-line, and then you can go back and do the rest of your stuff with your O-line. So
another question that's came in, I'm going to give to Carl first from Grant. So what sort of things have you done to coach mentality? I've encountered a lot of big softies, in inverted commas, who aren't naturally aggressive, but you do want them to finish blocks in a more aggressive manner.
I think I've been quite lucky in that I think every team I've had has always had like sort of like an aggressive culture from the year before. So like new players coming into that, like you almost charge those guys that were here before that, show the way it should be done, and sort of like, charge those with basically demonstrating that. And it's easy then to have that conversation and go, look what they're doing, look how aggressive they are, and like if you want to be part of this sport, then basically this is what you need to do. So I think I've always been lucky. I've not had an entire group of big softies and then having to try and instill some sort of bite in them. So I'm probably not the best person to answer this, because I was looking at the answer as well, at that question, saying that, I'd like to know the answer to this as well in case I ever come across this in the future.
I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't know about you guys. This is where I believe in scheme way more than mentality. And I know that sounds daft, because I don't care if you're naturally aggressive or you want to get pancakes. I believe pancakes, for example, which is, let's say, the ideal end outcome of an offensive lineman, I think that is more specific to when the D-line moves off, as opposed to just blowing somebody off the ball. I would always look to execute a pancake when the D-line, I feel the defensive lineman getting eyes in the backfield and moving towards that, as opposed to, so my aggression wouldn't come from that. It would be, I'm a big softy. I hate getting pinched on the offensive line. I don't like getting hurt, but I just get my body in the right position. So I don't think it's always a mentality thing. For me, I don't think it is the end goal, unless anyone tells me otherwise. I don't think you have to be that to be a good, effective offensive lineman. For me, scheme, technique are some of the best players. The two best players I've played with, I wouldn't say are aggressive people. They're just excellent technically and get their body in the right position. So for me, I wouldn't focus too much on that. I would focus more about the technique and teaching them on that side of things.
Yeah, so this actually comes up a lot in the some of the O-line groups I'm in. There's every month there's somebody going, "Oh, how do I teach aggression into my kids?" And it actually really bugs me as a term, because you hear aggression and the guy thinks, "Oh, I need to be like," and it's like, no, that's for D-line idiots. That's not for us. I would actually say it's confidence is what you want. If they know exactly what they're doing, scheme wise, and they know how to beat that guy, then you just build up that confidence. I've had players that they couldn't block their way out of a paper bag, but you just build up those little wins as time goes on, and they get confident in what they're doing, and then they get that sort of a bit of swagger come with them, because they know they can do it, and they know they can beat the guy no matter what. So I would just replace the aggression with confidence, and just make sure they're sound in what they're doing, and then it will just naturally happen.
JB, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what everyone's saying. I don't think, if a dog doesn't bite when it's a puppy, it's never going to bite. You know what I mean? Like, so, if the kid's naturally not a mean kid or something like that, it's not going to make him a bad football player, because I think that, like Lai was saying earlier, I think that offensive linemen, once you get them there, they want to know all the little things, because their job is so, like Carl said, it's so unnatural, that they want to know how to do things the right way to be successful. And once they kind of have, that's the mentality I think you want with an offensive line, is that they become, like Mike Bloomgren calls it, like brutal. What does he call it? Like brutal intelligence. That they're smart about what they do, and then they execute their techniques really well. Now, I will say this. The best offensive linemen I've ever had have been mean human beings. They're the guys that are very good technically, that can execute all the techniques that we need them to do. They understand their leverage. They understand all that stuff. But at some point, at some place inside them, they can turn it on and be just an absolute prick. And that's where you got a good offensive lineman. I hate to say it. That's what kind of takes it to the great level, is those guys just the ability to kind of just be mean, like go out there and just be a prick and play hard like that. That's a difference maker, I think, in a great offensive lineman. I think you can be super effective without being mean, but I consider myself a nice person. Like I've definitely become kinder and gentler in my older age. But like when I was a player, like I used to say, I'm not so sure I would have liked myself at 20 years old. Because that was my advantage, because I wasn't as big. I had to be mean. But I don't think I'm a mean person.
But I suppose what the question, I think, was erring towards the more like, why would you put that straight away into your mentality and violence? For me, I think that comes whilst playing offensive line. If I was to primarily focus on one thing to begin with, I would be more scheme, getting yourself in the right position. And then David's just raised a really good point, which I have, which is flip the switch. So as soon as I put my helmet on, that's when I'm a different person. I'm not actually a nice person then. As soon as I click in my two, and that's why I don't play special teams. But because of that, I like to that's when I change my mindset. And that just comes, I think, sometimes a little bit more with time and being comfortable in, am my feet in the right place? Am I sat in the right place? Is he coming on a blitz? What shade's he in? Why is he in that shade? Where's the safety? So if the safety's in, once you start to get past all those questions that you're asking all the time, I think that's where you can naturally just become a bit more aggressive. So I think primarily, that'll come first.
I think Carl hit the nail on the head, though. I think it's the culture and it's the room, because the younger guys that see the older guys that play it, and I'm telling you, your best overall player is probably, a very mean guy when he gets into the game and plays hard, and I think that's probably a better way to put it. The guys that play extremely hard. And when you have a culture of that, those other kids just come along, they just figure it out.
Yeah, it's fight rather than aggression. Like, as you say, it's not the aggression that you're sort of foaming at the mouth, sort of, just wanting to go hit something, but it's wanting to win that rep. It's wanting to scrap with someone. And I think, that's still difficult to teach. And that's where having that culture of people that are doing it and they can witness it being done and going, okay, I want to do that as well. Yeah, that really helps.
Yeah, we've had kind of like a question which is very similar on both parts. So one is, have we got, from Martin there, if a young player coach came to you and asked you about a book, website, clinic, has anyone got some top tips? And then double down on that to second in from Luke. Has anyone got any good offensive line groups and stuff for resources for rookies to join?
First of all, who let Martin Hilton in?
We have no control over it.
He's not supposed to be in this room. Outstanding coach, but why is he in the old line room? Is he lost? We need to help him out. Martin's the best. Martin is the absolute best. I don't know that there's a book out there that there's some good stuff, but I've always kind of felt that it's hard to learn offensive line play from a book. Like, I think that there's a lot of stuff that was traditionally written. We were saying this yesterday about practice planning. Football has changed very, very little in how we run a practice from 40 years ago. And unfortunately, I think if you look at a lot of the books that have been written, it's almost antiquated. The best sources, I think, for offensive line play are like getting on YouTube, looking at you got to stay. Offensive line play is the thing that changes the most. And you've got more cutting edge coaches talking about offensive line play and different ways to do things. I don't think you can. I don't think it's written down anywhere. I don't know where that is. To do that. Getting a relationship with a good line. Like I'm lucky. I've got some really good friends that are coaching at a very high level over here that are much better coaches than me that can spend all their time doing it. They're my resources. So it's like if you develop a resource with guys. To ask questions about what's going on, but there's so much out there now on YouTube. You can find some great stuff, and I'll tell you, most of them, if you get in contact with somebody, they'll get back to you. Offensive line coaches like to talk about this stuff. They're not trying to hide anything.
Yeah, I think there's a good one, Duke Merriweather, O-line Masterminds. He's really good. I like to follow him, and anything with Quentin Nelson in is something I like to watch. That guy's just the best.
I was going to say, I'm definitely the Charles shill. I will subscribe. It's definitely a good subscription. All the stuff that he has. That would be my personal recommendation. But so Duke Merriweather. I'll follow that as well. Follow his page. And like I said, there's a few Facebook groups which I'm sort of part of as well. And I can't remember names off the top of my head, but there's quite a few out there if you search them. So.
The one that I somehow ended up managing. It's just called offensive line coaches. There's like 7,000 O-line coaches, and it's literally only O-line stuff because I will delete anything that's not O-line stuff. But I don't think there is a definitive like one book or one thing that you can. I think you just kind of steal stuff from everywhere. But yeah, if I had to go like one individual, it would be the Charles Bentley stuff. But I would say for our level, it maybe goes a little bit too far. Just with the time that we've got and everything like that, you can kind of fall down the rabbit hole on it, and it goes a bit too high level. And with all these kind of things, like at some point they're trying to make some money off you. So just take it all with a bit of pinch of salt. Whether it's like Tip of the Spear or Charles Bentley or any of these things, it's all. It's all trying to get you to buy into their new thing that they've done. So just take what works and what, if you can try it and you like it and you can feel the difference of why that works and it makes sense, then yeah, just pick and choose and make up your own little sort of mishmash, really. Happy anyone wants sort of pointing in the right direction for bits and pieces, just message us or whatever. But like you say, offensive line coaches aren't precious about stuff. They just want people to be better at offensive line because it's just sad when you watch people that aren't. So yeah, just they'll always share. They're not precious about anything.
I think what we'll do after this, because I've been saying we'll do it for a while, we'll set up like a UK offensive line players and coaches group, and we'll just try and get more of a community. Because one of the things I did want to do this year out of COVID is you see it in the NFL, a lot of the old linemen coming together and doing how do we work on stuff as a team and a collective. So maybe we'll work on something where we do just an online day and a clinic. Who knows? Maybe Bafka can stump up some cash to get JB to come over, and we'll do something like that maybe towards the back end of this year once the season's finished. So
we'll do for the buffet as well. Just
that's going to be the main part is the budget for the buffet. So we'll speak to a couple of millionaires and see if they can do that part of it for us. We'll set that up after that, and then what we'll do is we'll move from there on that. So we've got more of a community. So anyone looking for that, we'll set that up and we'll say classic from Wayne. Wayne's just commenting there just to show that he is watching and he's not funding that, just so you know.
So we need to be on best behaviour.
Yeah. A good question from Andrew Morgan coming here. On game day, what information do you, from your O-line coach coming off the field post, what do you want from your O-line coach coming off post drive, or from your O-line in general? And what do you want from your sideline coaches to be telling you?
All right. Once again, Morgan has written a cryptic question that we can't understand.
So I think from when, I think Morgan's an offensive coordinator. So when his offensive line comes off the field, what does he want post drive? So when I come off the field, I will tell my offensive coordinator if there's anything different to what we've scouted that week. So I was seeing a Texas stunt or a Jesus stunt or whatever stunt we're seeing, which is out of the ordinary. How the linebackers lined up in the gaps that we thought. Are they in the 1 and the 2? Have they adjusted to ours? Are they slanting more? Things that won't necessarily jump off. So that's from me. But
I think as a minimum, I'd just kind of go, left to right across the defense. Just check, as you kind of say, check everyone is where we think they're going to be. Because from the sideline, the only thing you can't see is sort of width and depth of players. You can see there's 4 down linemen, but you can't see techs necessarily, exactly. So that would be probably better minimum for me, is just to check the sort of alignments of the defense. And is that guy, he might be playing a 1, but is he really tight on that sort of thing, or is this guy terrible, that sort of thing as well.
So just before we carry on, I do have to say, to me and Pemberton, we're talking about the idea of setting up the group in the clinic, so I can't take all the credit. So and shut up Morgan. Over there. But yeah, so anyone else in terms of that, what do you want from your offensive lineman as coming off as an OC, or as a sideline coach, what are you feeding into your offensive coordinator to help?
So I think following up is are they exactly lined up where we thought they were going to be? Try and get all that info as much on the first series. So one thing that I've always done, and I think it came from Anthony Fitzpatrick, which is get as far away from the O-line as possible, to try and always try and view from behind as much as you can, or So yeah, if we're on our own sort of 20 coming out, like go to the opposite end of the coaching box, so give you a bit more of that perspective to see where players are lined up, and then I'd try and draw the entire first series out, knowing what hash we were on, whether it's on the left or right hash, just to see if we can try and figure out any patterns as to where they're lining up given the field position. But and then obviously just check it with them. Hey, this is what I saw. Do we agree? This is what we're seeing. Yes, okay. And then you sort of have that for the rest of the game then, and just keep an eye on it and just sort of tweak it if we see anything different. So that's what I do to begin with.
Yeah, I don't want them to say anything until I get to ask the questions, because they'll come off, and this is every single offensive line in the history of football. They're all coming off. They're all just talking nonsense. Like they're blitzing here, they're doing this. No, they're not doing any of that. Sit down and shut up. And it's the same thing. Like, are they doing anything different than we thought they were going to do? And generally it's no, because if you scouted fairly effectively, unless the other coach – look, if the other coach changes the entire defense, we're going to win the game, because they can't get that ready that fast. We'll figure out how to beat that. But are they lined up where we thought they were going to? And then from my standpoint, like, this is where you got to have a good relationship with those linemen to tell you the truth. How wide is that end really playing you? Can we reach him? And guys have to kind of know their ability, and you got to know your guys' abilities to say, okay, this is realistic. Because sometimes it'll be like, Coach, I can take that guy all day long, and I'm like, he is smoking your ass. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we're going to have to get you some help or whatever it is. I really don't want them giving me too much information from the line standpoint. Their job is to play. Our job is to coach. So I'm with Carl. Like, if I can get into a position where I can see what's going on, or I have an assistant coach that can kind of see where things are in terms of the alignment, generally we know if it's a 4 down, this is kind of how they align. Where's the 3 technique? These are things that the box is going to tell you, or the coaches are going to tell you. And then you tell the players what's going on, because 9 times out of 10, they don't know what's going on. They're just out there trying to play,
I just think maybe from the brick ball side of things, maybe your offensive coordinator might actually be playing in the game. Your offensive lineman coach is your offensive lineman or your centre. So I think that's probably why the question is more likely to come up.
A box would be nice.
Yeah. Somebody watching the game and not calling plays would also be nice.
But I mean, that's the funny part. That's one of the reasons I always said I wouldn't play a coach, because I've had to do it like 2 or 3 times because brick ball. But you come off on the sideline as a player, and then you guys are saying, what are we seeing? I'm like, I don't know. I was only looking at my guy, like I couldn't see everything. So it's one of the reasons I always say you can't play a coach, especially O-line. Yeah, especially O-line.
We have had this question before, so I'm going to change it. But thanks, James. So good feet or good hands? I think we've all in agreement of good feet. However, one of the things I've learned personally over the past couple of years is at what point to give your hands as an offensive lineman. So I want to ask you guys, do you teach that? Is it like a hands-on first in run protection or pass protection? What's your theory in terms of how quick to give your hands? Anyone can go first on that one, unless you just get them on straight away.
Yeah, on a pass, I'd be like, he's got to beat you, so don't go to him. Like, that's I think the biggest thing, especially with new guys, is like, I've got to get out to him. It's like, no, he's got to beat you. So don't kind of shoot your bolt too early. Like, you've got that strike ready. Don't waste it. So he's got to come to you. I would hope.
Was that the same in like a quick set? So if it's a play action, would you set off with the same advice on a quick set, or is that just pass protect, not pass attack? In the traditional three,
generic. Like, if I had
kick,
to
slide,
give a general rule, run blocking, I generally want hands on as quick as possible, because then you can grip as much as you like, because obviously we never hold. But yeah, get in, get fit, and then if you're quick enough, then it doesn't matter what they do with their hands, because you're already in there. Sort of thing.
Yeah. JP, have you got any thoughts in terms of that? Or very similar in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, we're all the same. I think I never wanted to. General rule, like, I'm never going to throw my hands unless I'm close enough to shake hands with the guy. Right. I think that a handshake distance is kind of where you should throw the hands. And, there's a whole other conversation about independent hand use as opposed to two-hand strikes. I think that's player dependent, but in general, handshake distance, that's when we're gonna strike. In the run game, you're right. Lai's right. It's completely different. You're striking at a faster pace. Pass protection is more about kind of holding them until you have to put your hands on them. But it goes back into the initial conversation about feet. Like, get to your spot, establish your position, and then if the guy never gets close enough to you for you to throw your hands, don't extend yourself, because 9 times out of 10, when the guys extend their hands, they lean forward and they come off their balance. And so just hold them back. Just stay in the way. Maybe it works better for me. Play basketball with him a little bit, where we're just kind of staying between him and the quarterback. That's the easiest way that pass protection can be described. So, handshake distance, and then being able to kind of strike the surface that they present to you, because you're going to get different reads based on, if they give you the chest, you take the chest. Paul Alexander always says, we all knew as 14-year-old boys at a dance, if she gives you the chest, you take it. That's just how it is. But that's the thing. Like, if it presents itself, that's where we want to put our hands. But if they give you a shoulder read and they're going to drop that shoulder, your hands hit on a different surface. So, but the common denominator is handshake distance. That's as close, that's as far away as I want them to be before I'm going to throw my hands.
Just on that shoulder read, where do you want the hand strike then? Do you want that hip opposite, across the body, inside hip and across the body, or do you want a washout, or do you still want him to post him up at that point?
I mean, I think if they're giving you the shoulder read, that rusher has said, I'm going up the field. Mm-hmm. I'm going up the field. So with that, I'm a Paul Alexander guy on that one. I think that when you see the shoulder read, I think of feet first. So once I've established that, okay, that guy's going to go up the field, I'm going to take one more kick. So I tend to kick twice in lag. There's like a little pause there. So we'll kick twice to get to the spot. And then if that guy's going up the field, I'm going to take another kick. And then we do a technique, I call it the bear claw, where, we're going to kind of circle our hand back, because our outside, I still want my outside hand to get to the front side pec, the outside pec. And then my inside hand will work at whatever surface is there. So that could be if that shoulder is dipping, it could be to drive the shoulder down into the ground. If it could be the guy's coming up, it might be to get that hand on the hip to widen him. You know what they all do? They all turn, they put their face on the guy, and then they try to push him and they get spun. So to me, it's like when we see the shoulder read, it's more about not where your hands go, but it's taking the next kick and not turning. And then your hands kind of work themselves out. Like, then put them where they need to be. Like, there's not a lot of science to it, right? It's like whatever surface you can get your hands on, you're going to do that. There's little techniques that we teach, but at the end of the day, you get into a game, they all go caveman, right? If you haven't done that technique over and over and over again, you revert to your base training, which is hopefully for most offensive linemen is, well, if I get my feet in front of him, I'm okay. Then he can rock me, but at least he's not hitting the court. He's not running around me to the quarterback. So, I always say,
are you teaching as much of that in pass protection? Sorry, I'm more picking your brain. Like body line, kind of line of scrimmage, so shoulders square to the line of scrimmage is what I'm trying to say.
I'd say, the idea of staying square, stay as square as you can for as long as you can. I think that works. I think that's generally good stuff. But we had a New England offensive line clinic a couple of weeks ago, and Dante Scarnecchia was the lead speaker, right? So here's the godfather, right? I consider him to be, maybe the best offensive line coach that the NFL's had, because he is so basic with what he does. And here he was protecting Tom Brady, this great dynasty with the Patriots and all this other stuff. You can't tell me, no one in here can tell me who the big name offensive lineman for the Pats was, because they never really had a big time guy in there. He would take guys that played at Georgia Tech that run block their whole careers and turn them into a good player. So his things are so simple. Like, I asked him one time, about that, and he said, he goes, his idea was, you're going to block the rusher on the angle that he's on. So there are times where you're going to turn more to him earlier. Again, like using basketball, like you've never seen a basketball, forward kick slide to stop a guy from driving the baseline. he's going to slide out there on that angle with his shoulders at like a 45. And he was teaching that to the left tackle of the New England Patriots to protect Tom Brady. No one else was saying that. They're all saying kick slide, blah, 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 all this other shit, get vertical. So when I asked him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, are you still kind of thinking that? He goes, I just tell him stay as square as you can for as long as you can. And when you got to get on the angle, you get on the angle. And that's at the highest level, is he's teaching it that way. So, I feel like a lot of times offensive line coaches, because it is such a technical thing and we like the game so much, we think ourselves out of a lot of simple things. We think ourselves into complicated stuff. And so, I always like to check myself and revert back. And I kind of say, well, what would Dante say on this? And his stuff is so simple, it makes it easy. So square as you can, as long as you can, adjust to the angle of the rusher. If he's wider, you're going to stay square longer. That's just how it is. Because at some point you got to engage him, and you can't stay square.
Yeah. And for Carl, I'll let you take this one. How do we get O-line more active in practice, specifically in Indies?
Run laps. Lots of laps.
I will drop you out of this chat quicker than you came in it.
How do you get more active? As in, what, just more reps, more like up-tempo stuff? Like, because I've always been more of a deliberate practice sort of person, and if that means slowing it down, then I'll slow it down. So, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't want to just go tempo for the sake of going tempo, because you'll just compound bad habits rather than teach good ones. So yeah, let's clarify. What do you mean by more active? More.
So I read that as, I'm assuming we've all attested to, these large portions of practice sometimes where the offensive line might not be doing as much as the rest of the team due to, I don't know, special teams outside a field goal, kick return, probably ideally touch wood not going to be there as much and that kind of thing. Maybe at that point, what do you do to get them involved a little bit more? Or what do you do during that time with your offensive line?
It's even better. We get more indies. We get to spend more time teaching all this complicated stuff that we were talking about.
So we do a lot of hip stuff and medicine ball work and all that kind of stuff. Whereas it seems fun, but they're actually doing sort of conditioning mobility stuff at the same time. It's like stealth conditioning for offensive linemen. So I think it just. Yeah, just trying to make it fun, but there's loads of stuff you can do, like bands and balls and all that kind of stuff that they don't really realise that they're sort of and it then gets them moving around and then improving all those, because that's the thing we don't have time to do with them. Is like hip mobility and flexibility and all that kind of stuff. So you can weave it in there. And so our whole team actually, now we started doing it. We used to just do it with the O-line, but straight after warm-up, the first 5 minutes we do just a whole hip mobility routine with the whole team, because it's such a hip dominant sport. Mm-hmm. It just makes everyone a couple inches lower. So I just stuff like that. Right?
Yeah, another question that's came in from Scott, and I'm going to bite my tongue on this because it's gap down backer. For gap, read down, gap rules, or SAB, what would be the footwork and coaching points for an attack side tackle on the buck sweep? Very specific.
No idea. Don't run it.
Yeah, JB, any thoughts on gap down backer?
On the buck, if we're running it to the 3 technique, which it kind of works out a lot that way, I don't change my offensive tackles down block rules much from how we would double team a 3 technique. So I'm a gallop guy on my double teams. I've really bought into that. But we were doing it years ago. We would want to stay, that square kind of step down rather than that old traditional wing T kind of angle drive and pin him, right? Which is fine. Like that's worked for 1,000 years. That's good stuff. But where I was finding that the tackles were having trouble on plays like buck, where the action's going out, the guard is pulling out, so the defensive tackle is going to get drawn out, right? Like if they're an attack defense and they're coming up the field, angle drive it, put your face across them, old school wing T, backside shoulder, drive through them, right? That's what I would do, right? Because that's out of the book, right? That's out of the Delaware wing T book. But with generally the 3 technique being a pretty good player, when he reads all that flow, he's like a magnet to that guard. He's going to come out. So what we didn't want to do is just drive down and miss him, have him come over the top of the block. So we kind of stayed with the gallop. So we kind of gallop to the guy, and then he adjusts his hips based on what the defensive lineman's doing. So if I stay square and the 3 technique's starting to come over the top, I can drive block that back, right? I can get in the way. I'm not going to miss him. So it's a little bit more square to figure it out, like gallop to figure it out. And then if he hangs there, then I can turn and burn on him and just drive him and pin him, right? But if I step square and then the guy goes over the top, now I can adjust myself and I can get back in front of him, and it might have to become a reach block. So I mean that's just that drill, right? You pull the guard, you make the 3 technique, figure the shit out. But I'm a square to figure it out guy on the front side of any kind of play where you're going to get an open pull out of the front side guard, if that makes sense, right? Anytime you're going to pin, that's how I teach it. Just because it solves us from missing it. Now, if you've got raw rookies and I got a kid that's never done it before, angle drive. It just don't miss. Like what else are you going to tell them? But if I want to get technical, I'm going to stay with that square step, and then I'm gonna sort it out by how the defensive lineman plays me.
I just want to say I'm glad that JB dropped a swear in there as well, so I'm not the only one. So 1-1.
I swore? When did I swear?
I mean, I think we're in a position where we're teaching the down block stuff a little bit more, and as JB said, the old school way is that head in the hole, which I think is the phrase that gets used a lot. But I think it's difficult to sort of like specifically teach that nowadays when we're trying to remove the head from contact, to actually say, get your head across, head in the hole, like, attack with your back opposite shoulder with your head across. So yeah, maybe that idea is said like, sort of gallop to it and then like pivot the hips is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I think it feeds into everything. It's just getting your body position in the right body position. At worst case scenario, at that point, they've got to work through you to get to the plate, right? So as long as you're wide, get a good base, then you're more than often fine. Lai, I think you had a good question.
So this is something that comes up a lot. So I thought I would put it to the group. Skip pull or not?
I taught it, but to get there, whatever's the most efficient way for that person to get there.
I think I think probably if
you have to cross 2 gaps, skip. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it, right? But in general, it's a technique. It's can your guy do it? Like
it's just divided people across. So I just thought it'd be a good one to ask.
I try to teach it. Yeah. I try to teach it to everybody, and then if there's guys that can't do it, I said that's the last time you skip pull. You just open and go.
Yeah. No, to be fair, I'm like, if you can do it, fair play. But most people just stand up, cross the legs, look shit, and then get hit and have no momentum. So
I think I like it from the perspective you can sort of keep your shoulder square to the line of scrimmage. So in theory, you should be able to see the back that you're ultimately wanting to block a bit easier. But yeah, if they're just like tripping over their own feet and really slow at doing it, just pivot. Get there.
Yeah, I get the premise. I like it, but I never had a definitive someone go, actually, it's really good because of this, or you're missing something, or like, yeah.
From my perspective, it's because it's not always taught to the right effect. So I think sometimes the skip pull becomes after that first initial kind of hinge out, and then you're skipping. Whereas I feel if you coach it properly, where it's full skip pull from the very first moment of the pull, I think it's a little bit more effective, because then you could even do it into like a one skip pull gap. But I think that's, for me, has always been the problem. I agree with JB, coach it to everyone. If they can't get it and they're tripping over their own feet like Bambi, then just
listen. It's you're going to get there faster when you skip. That's just a fact, right? You can do that better. So like on the backside of zone plays, on the backside of an outside zone play, I skip to reach on the backside. We use a skip technique to basically kind of short pull our backside linemen on outside zone plays. It gets them there better. I had a kid that used we actually allowed him to skip like a gap seal hinge on the backside of a power play, the tackle. I would let him skip seal hinge So he would move his outside foot for a skip, seal, hinge. He got there a lot faster. It's a better technique. When we're pulling, though, I think the skip pull, when most people are talking about a skip pull, they're talking about running the guard pull on the power, right? That's the common denominator.
Yep.
I'm not even skip pulling anymore. I skip and shuffle. I don't even turn my shoulders anymore. I skip, shuffle, spike my foot in the ground, and go vertical. I don't even allow them to turn and run because they'll screw it up every time. They over pull it, right? They can't make that 90-degree turn. So I don't let them make I don't force them to make any kind of turn at all. They skip, they shuffle their feet, they stay square, they shuffle along like a crab, and then they're just going right up into the line of scrimmage. And that's been a lot more effective. It's actually slowed the guards down, which makes a better block, and it keeps them square. So that's North Dakota does that on their power stuff, and I think it's super effective. But to each their own, right? You watch the NFL, there's tons of guys that open pull, run through the hole, and smash people. But I know this. If I had my guy do it, he will not make the block. So I do what my guys can do. And so that's how I'll start to teach it, because I just don't want him running. Now if you're running on running out on the perimeter on a play, like you're leading a jet or you're running pin and pull or buck, that's a different pull. I would not skip that. I would open pull that.
Yeah, mainly on counter. Not counter, sorry, force of habit. Mainly on power.
Yeah. No, yeah, I completely agree. I prefer that, what JB said. We're kind of almost shuffling with your shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. Like I said, I want to be as square as possible, whatever I'm doing the whole time. I get eyes on more. So, yeah. A couple of comments, really. So, again, another question here from Ed. As a player, what is the best way I can encourage rookie O-linemen to improve and get involved?
Food. I'm not joking. Food. I think if you want to have a great offensive line and you've got rookies and you have a couple of good veteran players, food. Go out and eat together. Everybody likes to eat. I don't care. Receivers and quarterbacks might like to eat salads, but they like to eat. So get that group together and just go get something to eat. I had an offensive lineman who became a great player for me. He was a 4-year starter and a captain. During preseason camp his freshman year, he was homesick. He didn't want to be there. He came in. He said to me, Coach, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to retire. I'm not going to play. And I said, no, you're not. I'll see you at practice. My next phone call was to the 2 senior tackles and saying, that kid's ready to walk out of camp for no good reason. Do something. They took him to McDonald's. Problem solved. They just needed time together, and that's the best thing to do. Play to wings will keep an offensive line together more than anything else. So, that's to me is it's about your room. It's about, like Carl said, it's about the culture. If you build a good culture with those guys, there's no group of guys that you want to be around more than the offensive line. They're the most fun. They're the most down to earth. They're self-effacing. Yeah, they're just the best. That's why we coach them. So, food. Take them out to eat. Problem solved. They'll get involved.
Just have a big enough bank balance to take an offensive lineman out for food. Or buffets. All you can eat buffets are just a simple solution. So, yeah. I'm having a barbecue for our guys in a couple of weeks. So I've been saving a couple of £100 a month for the offensive line. So anything for you guys in terms of that? So, for an offensive lineman over and above food, I've got nothing. But you guys?
I think it's just how you sell O-line, going back to the beginning of what we said. I always say it's like it's the engine of the team. So if your offensive line's bad, then your defense is on the field all the time, so they're knackered, and then your offense is terrible. So you just give them that that feeling of importance, like you are really important to this team, so we need you, put that onus on them. And I find that's helped a bit.
Definitely recognition. As I said, we've had to convince these people from the beginning that that they should play O-line, and you don't get a lot of recognition at O-line. And it's fine. Most of us play the sport long enough. Understand that and are happy with that. That's our role, and we'll do that. But if you're new to it, you're not getting to touch the ball and do all the things. Have fun. So make sure they are recognised is definitely part of that. That will keep them there. Following up from what Lydon just said, make sure that they know that they're having a positive impact on the team by playing this position and sticking at it.
But not so far that they become like divas and dicks.
I was just about to ask.
I've not had that issue.
Do you think there can be a fine line with it? Because I've played enough where, because this is a constant message, where coaches, it can almost feel disingenuine and not very authentic about that. It's just like the offensive line, and I've heard it, the heartbeat and the engine of the team, and they're just saying it because of it, but they're not giving that. And then the opposite, where they can almost give them too much and then they become divas. So is there a fine line, do people think?
Yeah, I've seen it go both ways, but I'm normally pretty straight talking with everyone in that it's harder for them to sort of get the diva-ish thing, because they'll come straight back down again when I'm telling them what they've done wrong. But yeah, so yeah, definitely it is possible, but it doesn't happen that often, because normally offensive linemen just tend to sort of get on with it and do the work kind of thing. But yeah, I have seen it happen.
Goes back to culture then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I have ever had a diva offensive line, or even offensive line man. I think that they're pretty level-headed, but I think it's also how you handle it as a coach. Like, if I'm the line coach, and I've been lucky to be the line coach and the head coach, so I kind of occupy both those spaces. But even when I was just a line coach, I would play the offensive line up to the rest of the team constantly in front of the rest of the team. Like, they're the greatest guys. They're the greatest things since sliced bread. We're going to be, we're the hardest working group here and everything. Get into the line room, then you tell them the truth. You're like, hey, I love you guys and I praise you guys to the other thing, but these are the things that need to be fixed, or, knock them down a couple pegs if they need it. But generally, I've never had, it's the nature of the position. They're just good dudes, and they want to. Offensive linemen are people pleasers too. They want to make you happy. They're like big dumb dogs some days. They just want to make you happy. And if you take that the right way, you can do great things with them. They'll overachieve all the time.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Unless anyone's got any more questions, I think, like I said, we could go on talking for hours, but we've run pretty much the full hour there. Obviously, we will, after this, we'll look to set up some sort of group, and then hopefully towards the end of the year, as Pemberton came up with the idea, we'll set up some sort of clinic where we can actually get into this and show people that. And if you're not following, sometimes when offensive linemen talk to each other, we can get a little bit technical in terms of that. Sometimes it's better to see it. So ideally, touch wood, we'll get something sorted towards the end of the year, so we can all come together and talk about that and eat a load of wings, hopefully.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Guys, thanks very much for joining us. Been an absolute pleasure. Always good to talk offensive line with you guys. And again, if you're watching and you're a young offensive lineman or a young offensive line coach, or you're just somebody who wants to learn more, I'm sure your guys' social medias are always open to anyone looking to do that, and hit them up and have a chat with that as much as possible.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, perfect. Guys, lovely to chat to you all and see you all very, very, very soon. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for coming.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much. So for everyone watching, this is the third of our live shows. So thank you very much for everyone for tuning in. It's not the end of our live shows. We have got a couple more coming up. So if you're looking forward to them, so if you're still in the offensive line side of the room, we obviously blocked for someone. So please join us at 4:00 where we chat to Brian Guzman about QB reads and the passing game and what that looks like. And then obviously they throw it to somebody. So at 6:00 we're joined by Mike Venuccia talking about wide receiver development and fundamentals. So please join us for those two. So it's not the end of the day. And then we obviously running through till I think nearly 10, 11 o'clock. We've got a load of videos scheduled up, ready to go. So join us. Keep coming throughout the day. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We're going to end it now, and we'll see you back here at 4:00. Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.